Commander Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship. His hands gripped the metal rail as he watched the screens around him. For 3 long years, he had fought beside the Zephyrians against their common enemy, the war against the Vorthen. Empire had been brutal, but Earth and Zephyr had stood together. Now everything was wrong. "Sir, the Zephyrian ships are turning toward us," called out Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her station. Her voice shook as she spoke. "They're powering up their weapons." Jake could not believe what he was seeing. The blue ships that had saved human lives just yesterday were now pointing their guns at Earth's fleet. Red warning lights flashed across every screen on the bridge. "This has to be a mistake," Jake said. But deep down, he knew it was not. Admiral Lisa Carter's voice came through the radio from the space station above Earth. "All human ships, we have a problem. The Zephyrians have turned on us. They're jamming our engines. We cannot jump to light speed." Jake felt his stomach drop. Without their fast engines, the human ships were trapped. They could not run, and they were badly outnumbered. The first shots came without warning. Green energy beams cut through space and hit the human ship closest to Jake's position. The vessel exploded in a ball of fire and metal. Jake watched good people die in an instant. "Return fire!" Jake shouted. "All weapons, shoot back." But it was too late. The Zephyrians had planned this moment perfectly. They had waited until the human fleet was far from Earth, far from help. The surprise attack was working. Captain Ryan Walsh commanded another human ship nearby. He had been Jake's friend since they joined the military together. Ryan's ship took 3 direct hits before he could even respond. Jake watched his friend's vessel break apart and spin to the darkness. Jake, they knew exactly where to hit. "U.S.," Ryan's last message said before his radio went silent forever. More human ships exploded around them. The Zephyrians had studied human technology for 3 years. They knew every weak spot, every defense system. They had been planning this betrayal since the day they first shook hands with Earth's leaders. Amy Brooks worked fast at her station. Her fingers moved across the controls as she tried to break through the jamming signal. "Sir, I'm picking up something strange. The Zephyrians have been sending secret messages to the Vorthens during the whole war." Jake's blood went cold. "What are you saying?" "They've been working together, sir. The whole war was fake. They wanted us to fight the Vorthens, so we would use up our ships and soldiers. Then they planned to attack us when we were weak." The truth hit Jake like a punch to the face. Every battle they had fought, every friend they had lost, every victory they had celebrated, it had all been a lie. The Zephyrians had been playing both sides from the beginning. "We need to warn Earth," Jake said. But even as he spoke, he could see Zephyrian ships moving toward the blue planet below them. The attack on Earth began with bright flashes in the sky. The Zephyrian ships rained fire down on the major cities. Jake could only watch as the planet where he was born came under attack. Millions of people lived in those cities. His own family was down there somewhere. "Sir, we have to do something," Amy said. Tears ran down her face as she watched the bombardment. "Take us down to the planet," Jake ordered. "We'll fight them in the atmosphere." "But, sir, we'll be destroyed," the pilot said. "Then we'll die fighting," Jake replied. "I won't abandon Earth." But before they could move, more Zephyrian ships appeared around them. Jake's ship was surrounded. Green energy beams hit their shields again and again. The power systems began to fail. Amy worked desperately to save what information she could. "Sir, I'm downloading all the data about their betrayal. If someone survives this, they need to know the truth." The ship shook as another blast hit them. Sparks flew from broken control panels. The lights went out for a few seconds before the backup power kicked in. "Abandon ship," Jake called out. "Everyone to the escape pods." Amy grabbed the data storage device and ran toward the pods with the rest of the crew. Jake stayed on the bridge until the last person was safe. Then he followed them into the small escape vessel Dot as their pod fell toward Earth. Jake watched his ship explode behind them. The Zephyrians did not waste time shooting at the escape pods. They were too busy destroying the larger ships and bombing the planet. The pod crashed in a forest outside what used to be New York City. Jake and Amy crawled out of the wreckage and looked up at the sky. Zephyrian ships filled the air above them, their weapons still firing down at the burning city. "How many people do you think survived?" Amy asked. Jake did not answer. He could not bear to think about the numbers. Earth's population had been nearly 10 billion people before the attack. Now, smoke rose from every direction as far as they could see. But something strange began to happen. Deep underground, old machines were waking up. The bombing had triggered systems that had been sleeping for decades. Jake did not know it yet, but Earth had been preparing for this day longer than anyone realized. The betrayal was complete. The Zephyrians had won their war against humanity. But they had made one terrible mistake. They had assumed that humans would give up after being defeated. They were about to learn that humans never give up. They just get angry. 6 months had passed since the day the sky burned. Jake Morrison crouched behind a pile of broken concrete, watching Zephyrian patrol ships fly over the ruins of Denver. The aliens had set up camps all across Earth, but they did not know about the tunnels deep beneath the Colorado mountains. Something incredible was happening. Jake had received a radio message 3 days ago. It came from Colonel Ben Taylor, a man who was supposed to be dead. The message was simple. Phoenix is awake. Come home. Jake and Amy Brooks had been living like animals since the attack. They ate whatever food they could find and hid from the alien patrols. But the message gave them hope for the first time in months. The journey to the mountains took 2 days. They traveled at night and slept during the day. When they finally reached the hidden entrance, Jake could hardly believe his eyes. The massive steel doors were 30 feet tall and built into the rock itself. "State your name and rank," a voice said from speakers hidden in the stone. "Commander Jake Morrison, Earth Defense Fleet," Jake replied. The doors opened with a deep rumbling sound. Bright lights came on, showing a tunnel that went straight down into the earth. Jake and Amy walked forward, and the doors closed behind them. What they found inside changed everything. Colonel Ben Taylor met them at the bottom of the tunnel. He looked older than Jake remembered, but his eyes were bright with purpose. "Welcome to Phoenix Base," Ben said. "We've been waiting for you." The underground facility was enormous. Jake saw hundreds of people working at computer stations and building equipment he did not recognize. The walls were lined with screens showing star maps and ship designs. "How is this possible?" Amy asked. "We thought everyone was dead." Ben smiled. "The government built this place 50 years ago, after we first met aliens in space. They knew that someday someone might try to attack Earth, so they prepared for war." Dr. Susan Hayes approached them. She was a small woman with gray hair, but her voice was strong and confident. "We've been studying alien technology in secret for decades," she explained. "Every piece of Zephyrian and Vorthan equipment we could get our hands on." She led them to a laboratory filled with strange machines. "The aliens think they're superior to humans," Susan said, "but they made a mistake. Human brains work differently than theirs. We can interface with their computers in ways they never imagined." Jake watched as Susan placed her hand on a glowing panel. The alien device responded instantly, showing data on its screen. Their security systems were designed to keep out Zephyrian minds, she explained. But human thought patterns are too chaotic for their computers to block. Ben took them to another level of the base. Here, Jake saw something that made his heart race. Massive construction bays stretched out before them, and inside each bay was a human spaceship, unlike anything he had ever seen. "We call them Phoenix ships," Ben said. "They're built with human engineering, but they use alien technology in ways the aliens never thought possible." Captain Nick Johnson walked up to them. He was young, maybe 30 years old, but he carried himself like a veteran soldier. "We've been testing these ships for 3 months," Nick said. "They're faster than anything the Zephyrians have, and their weapons can punch through alien shields like they're made of paper." Amy stared at the ships with wonder. "How many do you have?" 60 ships are ready now," Ben replied. "But we're building more every day. Factories on the moon, on Mars, and in the asteroid belt have been working in secret. The Zephyrians don't even know they exist." Jake felt hope growing in his chest. What about Earth? What about the people still alive on the surface? Ben's expression became serious. "Major Kate Phillips is coordinating resistance groups in every occupied zone. The Zephyrians expected humans to surrender after the bombing. Instead, they found fighters who learned their tactics and turned them against them." Kate Phillips appeared as if summoned by her name. She was covered in dirt and carried weapons Jake did not recognize. "The aliens are getting nervous," she reported. "They've lost 6 patrol units this week. Our people are hitting them where they don't expect it. The resistance is teaching us valuable lessons," Ben explained. "Every captured alien weapon, every piece of technology we steal, goes to our research teams. We're learning their weaknesses." Susan led them to another room where screens showed battles happening in space. "We've been watching Zephyrian ships for months," she said. "They fight in predictable patterns. They rely on formation flying and coordinated attacks, but humans fight differently." Jake watched the recordings. He could see that human pilots were more aggressive, more willing to take risks. "They don't adapt well to chaos," he observed. "Exactly," Susan agreed. "In confused battle situations, human commanders can make decisions faster than Zephyrian computers can process the changes. It's our greatest advantage." Nick Johnson invited Jake to see the bridge of a Phoenix ship. The controls were designed for human hands and human minds. Everything was intuitive and responsive. "Each ship can operate completely alone," Nick explained. "No support networks that can be jammed. No central command that can be destroyed." "When do we fight back?" Jake asked. Ben looked at him seriously. "Soon. We're planning our first strike against a Zephyrian colony, a mining world called Kepler 442b. They're using human prisoners as slave labor." Jake felt anger burn in his chest. "I want to be part of that mission." "I was hoping you would say that," Ben replied. "You know their tactics better than anyone. You fought beside them for 3 years." Amy stepped forward. "What about me? I have the data from the betrayal. I know their communication codes." "We need you here," Susan said. "Your information is helping us break their encryption. But don't worry. There will be plenty of fighting for everyone." That night, Jake lay in his bunk and thought about the future. 6 months ago, he had watched Earth burn and thought humanity was finished. Now, he was surrounded by people who refused to give up. They had been preparing for war while the aliens celebrated their victory. The Phoenix ships were ready. The resistance fighters were organized. The secret factories were producing weapons faster than the aliens could imagine. But most importantly, humanity had learned something the Zephyrians did not understand. They had learned that being betrayed only made humans more dangerous. Every human who had survived the attack now had a reason to fight that went beyond duty or patriotism. They had a reason for revenge. Jake closed his eyes and tried to sleep. Tomorrow, they would begin planning the mission to Kepler 442b. It would be humanity's first step toward taking back the galaxy. The Zephyrians had taught them that trust was a weakness. Now humans would teach them what happened when you betrayed the wrong species. The Phoenix fleet moved through space like hunting wolves. Jake Morrison sat in the captain's chair of his new ship, the Retribution, watching the star charts on his screen. 3 weeks of travel had brought them to the edge of the Kepler 442 system. Admiral Ben Taylor's voice came through the radio from the command ship. "All vessels, we are now in enemy territory. Remember, this is not just a rescue mission. We are here to send a message." Jake looked at his crew. Lieutenant Commander Chris Allen sat at the pilot controls, his hands steady despite the danger ahead. These were not the same people who had fled Earth 6 months ago. They had trained in the underground bases, learned to use alien technology, and prepared for this moment. Amy Brooks worked at the communication station. She had decoded Zephyrian transmissions during the journey and discovered something troubling. "Sir, the mining colony has over 3,000 human prisoners," she reported. "They're being forced to work in the mines without protective gear." Jake felt his anger grow. The Zephyrians were not just using humans as slaves. They were working them to death in dangerous conditions. "How many alien guards?" "About 200 Zephyrians, plus automated defense systems," Amy replied. "But sir, there's something else. The mining operation is extracting rare elements used in advanced space drives. They're shipping the materials to other alien worlds." Ben Taylor had heard the report. "So they're not just enslaving our people. They're stealing resources to make their fleet stronger." The human ships hid in an asteroid field while they planned their attack. The Phoenix vessels were designed to be invisible to Zephyrian sensors, but they needed to be careful. This was their first real battle, and they could not afford to lose. Jake studied the layout of the mining colony. The Zephyrians had built their base in a valley on the planet's surface. Large machines dug deep into the ground, while human prisoners carried heavy loads of ore. The sight made Jake's blood boil. "The prisoners are being held in compounds near the mining site," Chris Allen observed. "If we attack the defenses first, we might hit our own people." Colonel Maria Santos had joined the mission to lead the ground assault. She was a tough woman who had fought in the resistance on Earth. "We need to land troops first," she said. "Secure the prison compounds, then attack the alien positions." Ben Taylor agreed. "Jake, take your ship and 3 others through the asteroid field. Use the cover to get close to the planet. Maria's team will land first, then we'll hit their orbital defenses." The plan was risky. If the Zephyrians detected them too early, human prisoners would be caught in the crossfire. But they had no choice. Every day they waited, more humans died in the mines. Jake guided his ship between the floating rocks. The asteroids provided cover, but they also made navigation dangerous. One wrong move could crush them into a mountain of stone and metal. "Contact." "In 30 seconds, Chris reported. "Zephyrian patrol ship moving toward our position." Jake had to make a quick decision. They could hide and hope the patrol passed by, or they could attack and risk alerting the colony. "All ships, prepare to engage. We take them fast and quiet." The human ships burst from the asteroid field like sharks attacking prey. The lone Zephyrian patrol vessel never had a chance to send a warning. Phoenix weapons tore through its shields and hull in seconds. The alien ship exploded silently in the vacuous space. "First blood to humanity," Ben Taylor said with satisfaction. "Continue the mission." Jake's ship and the others approached the planet while the main fleet stayed hidden. They used the planet's magnetic field to mask their approach, a trick the Zephyrians had never seen before. Maria Santos and her soldiers landed near the prison compounds under cover of darkness. The Zephyrian guards were not expecting an attack. They had grown lazy after months of easy duty, watching helpless human slaves. The rescue operation was swift and brutal. Human soldiers moved through the alien positions like shadows, taking out guards with weapons that made no sound. Within an hour, they had freed over 1,000 prisoners from the first compound. Captain Tony Rodriguez led another team to the mining facilities. What they found there made them sick with rage. Humans were being forced to work in toxic conditions without breathing equipment. Many were already dying from exposure to dangerous chemicals. Get these people out of here, Tony ordered his medics, and download everything from their computer systems. Amy Brooks had remained on Jake's ship to coordinate the communications. Sir, I'm intercepting alien transmissions. They're trying to call for help, but our jamming is working. Jake watched the ground operation from orbit. So far, everything was going according to plan, but he knew the real test would come when the Zephyrians realized they were under attack. The alarm came an hour later. Zephyrian ships began launching from hidden positions around the planet. They had been caught off guard, but they still outnumbered the human fleet 3-1. All Phoenix ships engage the enemy, Ben Taylor commanded. Show them what happens when you betray humanity. The space battle was unlike anything Jake had ever experienced. The Phoenix ships moved with a speed and agility that confused the Zephyrian pilots. Human vessels could change direction instantly, while alien ships needed time to adjust their course. Jake's ship dodged between enemy fire while his weapons officer targeted the largest Zephyrian vessel. Fire everything, Jake ordered. Let them feel our anger. The human weapons hit the alien ship like hammers striking glass. The Zephyrian shields failed after just 3 hits, and their hull cracked open like an egg. Jake watched alien bodies get sucked into space as their ship died around them. But the most important discovery came when Maria Santos reached the main mining facility. Captain Tony Rodriguez called in with news that changed everything. Admiral, you need to see this. Tony reported. This isn't just a mining operation. We found records of 6 other species that the Zephyrians betrayed and destroyed. And sir, there are detailed star charts showing every Zephyrian colony and military base in this sector. Jake felt his heart race. They had come to rescue human prisoners, but they had found intelligence that could win the war. The battle continued for 18 hours. When it was over, the Zephyrian colony was under human control. Every alien soldier was either dead or captured. More importantly, over 3,000 human prisoners had been freed, but the real victory was the information they had captured. Amy Brooks worked with the alien computers and discovered that the Zephyrians controlled over 200 star systems. They had been betraying and destroying other species for over 1,000 years. We're not their first victims, Jake realized. We're just their latest mistake. Ben Taylor gathered the fleet commanders for a meeting. This changes our entire strategy, he said. The Zephyrians aren't just our enemies. They're a threat to every free species in the galaxy. Jake looked at the star charts showing all the Zephyrian territory. It seemed impossible that humanity could take on such a vast empire. But then he remembered something important. The Zephyrians had made the same mistake with all their victims. They had underestimated their enemies. They thought that betrayal would break their spirits and make them easy to defeat. They had never fought a species that got stronger when it was angry. What are your orders, Admiral? Jake asked. Doc Ben Taylor smiled grimly. We're going to take it all. Every planet, every base, every ship they have. We're going to make them pay for every human life they took. The crew of the Retribution cheered. As they heard the plan, they had won their first battle, but Jake knew this was just the beginning. The Zephyrians had taught humanity a valuable lesson about trust and betrayal. Now it was time to teach them about revenge. General Lisa Carter stood in the war room aboard the massive Phoenix command ship. 6 months had passed since the victory at Kepler 442b, and humanity had not stopped moving. The walls around her were covered with star maps showing human progress. Across Zephyrian space, red dots marked enemy positions. Blue dots showed human-controlled systems. Every week, more red dots turned blue. "Ma'am, we have reports from all three fronts," Commander Paul Mitchell announced. He had become Lisa's chief intelligence officer after proving his skills at reading alien. Communications. Lisa studied the reports with satisfaction. Operation Thunderstrike had targeted 3 Zephyrian systems at the same time. The aliens had expected humans to attack one target at a time, like civilized warriors. Instead, humanity had learned to hunt in packs. Jake Morrison commanded the assault on Helios Prime, the strongest Zephyrian fortress in the region. His message was short and direct: fortress destroyed, enemy fleet eliminated, moving to next target. Colonel Steve Baker had led a different attack group to cut off Zephyrian escape routes. His ships moved like a net, trapping alien vessels that tried to flee from Jake's assault. The coordinated attack had worked perfectly. The Zephyrians still don't understand our tactics, Paul observed. They keep trying to fight us like we're another alien species. Lisa nodded. The aliens expected their enemies to follow rules of warfare, to fight with honor, and give warnings before attacking. Humans had learned to fight like the Zephyrians, themselves, with deception and betrayal. But the most important development had come from an unexpected source. Captain Rachel Stone approached the war table with a report that would change everything. "General, we've made contact with survivors," Rachel announced. "Not human survivors, alien survivors." Lisa looked up with interest. "Explain." "The Krillian remnant," Rachel continued. "They're what's left of a species the Zephyrians betrayed 200 years ago. They've been living as nomads in space, moving from system to system." Paul Mitchell pulled up new data on his screen. The Krillians have detailed information about Zephyrian weaknesses. They've been studying their enemies for 2 centuries, waiting for someone strong enough to fight back. Lisa felt excitement growing in her chest. "What do they want?" "Revenge," Rachel replied simply. "They want to join our war against the Zephyrians. They're offering to share everything they know in exchange for partnership." The meeting with the Krillian leaders took place in neutral space. Lisa brought Jake Morrison and Paul Mitchell with her. The alien ship was old and patched with repairs, but it moved with the grace of experienced survivors. The Krillian commander was a tall, thin being with silver skin and 4 arms. He called himself War Singer Thex, and his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "Humans," Thex said in broken English, "you fight the betrayers. You win where others failed. We offer alliance." Jake studied the alien carefully. "What? Can you tell us about Zephyrian tactics?" Thex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Everything. We watched them for 200 years. We learned their patterns, their fears, their mistakes. The information the Krillians shared was incredible. They had mapped every major Zephyrian military position. They knew which systems were heavily defended and which were vulnerable. Most importantly, they understood Zephyrian psychology. They are proud species," Bex explained. "Too proud. When they lose battle, they become confused. They make bad decisions when afraid." Paul Mitchell recorded every word. This intelligence was worth more than a dozen captured planets. "Do they have other enemies? Other species fighting against them?" "Yes," Dex replied. 6 species still resist. But they are weak, scattered. You humans are first to truly hurt the betrayers." Lisa saw an opportunity. What if we could unite all the resistance movements? Coordinate attacks across the galaxy. Jake understood immediately. We could stretch their forces thin, make them fight on multiple fronts. The plan that emerged from that meeting was ambitious beyond anything humanity had attempted. They would contact every species that had suffered under Zephyrian rule. They would share human technology and tactics. And they would launch simultaneous attacks that would overwhelm the enemy. Dr. Amy Brooks had been working on new discoveries since the first battle. Her research into human-alien interface technology had produced remarkable results. We can hack their systems faster than they can change their security codes, Amy reported to Lisa. Human brain patterns are so different from theirs that their computers treat us like authorized users. Colonel Steve Baker had tested this technology in battle. We can turn their own weapons against them, he explained. Their automated defense. Systems become our weapons when Amy's team takes control. The second wave of human expansion began 2 months later. This time, humanity targeted 6 systems simultaneously while coordinating with Krillian and other alien resistance forces. Jake Morrison led the assault on the industrial world of Vega 7. The planet produced most of the advanced components for Zephyrian starships. Destroying it would cripple their ability to build new vessels. The battle for Vega 7 was different from previous engagements. The Zephyrians had learned from their defeats and tried new defensive strategies. But they still could not match human adaptability. Lieutenant Colonel Greg Parker led a boarding party onto the largest Zephyrian factory ship. Instead of destroying the vessel, they captured it intact. The psychological impact was devastating. For the first time in their history, the Zephyrians watched their own technology being turned against them. They're starting to panic, Paul Mitchell reported from his intelligence station. Intercepted communications show they're arguing among themselves about how to respond to our attacks. Lisa studied the reports with grim satisfaction. Fear was spreading through the Zephyrian Empire like a disease. They had ruled through intimidation for so long that they did not know how to respond when someone intimidated them. Amy Brooks made another breakthrough when she analyzed captured Zephyrian leaders. Their biology makes them incapable of rapid decision-making, she reported. In chaotic situations, their brains literally freeze up while they try to process too much information. Jake saw the implications immediately. So if we keep them confused and off balance, they can't fight effectively. Exactly, Amy replied. They're designed for methodical, planned warfare. Human chaos overwhelms their mental processes. The third major victory came when Captain Tony Rodriguez captured an entire Zephyrian communication network. The intelligence windfall revealed that the alien empire was fracturing under pressure. Several colony worlds are refusing to send reinforcements. Tony reported. They're more afraid of human attack than Zephyrian punishment. Lisa looked at the strategic map with growing confidence. Red dots were turning blue faster than ever before. But more importantly, some red dots were simply disappearing as Zephyrian colonies declared independence or surrendered without fighting. The momentum was building. Each human victory inspired more resistance movements across the galaxy. Species that had hidden in fear for centuries were beginning to believe that the Zephyrians could be defeated. Jake Morrison received new orders during the battle for Vega 7. Admiral Morrison, Lisa said over the radio. She had promoted him after his string of victories. Prepare your fleet for the final phase. Jake felt his heart race. The final phase, ma'am? We're going to end this war, Lisa replied. We're taking the fight to Zephyr Prime itself. It's time to destroy the heart of their empire. As Jake looked out at the stars around Vega 7, he thought about how far humanity had come. 1 year ago, they had been betrayed and nearly destroyed. Now, they were leading a galactic alliance against their former allies. The Zephyrians had taught humans that trust was a weakness. But they had also taught them something more valuable, that the greatest mistake any enemy could make was to leave humans alive after betraying them. Now it was time for the final lesson. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking out at the largest human fleet ever assembled. 1 year ago, he had watched Earth burn under Zephyrian weapons. Now, 500 human ships surrounded the enemy homeworld of Zephyr Prime. The blue and green planet hung in space before them like a jewel. It was beautiful and peaceful looking. Jake found it hard to believe that this world had planned the destruction of so many species. "All fleet commanders, report status," Jake spoke into his radio. The responses came back quickly. Fleet Admiral Ben Taylor commanded the main battle group. General Lisa Carter led the orbital assault ships. Colonel Maria Santos prepared for ground forces for the final battle. But Jake was not only looking at human ships. The Krillian remnant had brought 30 vessels of their own. 6 other alien species had joined the alliance, each bringing ships and warriors eager for revenge against the Zephyrians. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," Lieutenant Amy Brooks reported from her station. "The Zephyrian." "High Command wants to talk." Jake felt cold satisfaction. "Put them through." The main screen showed a group of tall, elegant aliens in expensive robes. They had ruled the galaxy for over 1,000 years, but now fear showed in their large eyes. Zephyrian Prime Regents spoke first. His voice was smooth and calm, but Jake could hear the desperation underneath. "Admiral Morrison, we wish to discuss terms for ending this conflict." Jake did not respond immediately. He wanted them to feel the same helplessness the humans had felt during the betrayal. "We offer substantial territorial concessions," the Prime Regent continued. "We will return all human prisoners and provide war reparations. We will also share our advanced technology with Earth." Captain Susan Hayes stood beside Jake. She had become humanity's chief diplomat, but her expression was as hard as stone. "Tell me, Prime Regent," Susan said coldly, "did you offer territorial concessions to the other species you betrayed?" The alien leader shifted uncomfortably. "This situation is different. We believe our two species can reach an understanding." Jake finally spoke. "You taught us that trust is a weakness. You showed us that promises mean nothing. We learned that lesson very well. But surely we can negotiate," the Prime Regent insisted. "Civilized beings can always find peaceful solutions." Susan stepped forward. "Were you feeling civilized when you bombed Earth cities? Were you looking for peaceful solutions when you enslaved our people in your minds?" The truth was that Jake had already made his decision. Humanity had tried peace and cooperation with the Zephyrians. They had fought beside them for 3 years, shared their technology, trusted them with Earth's location. The result had been betrayal and mass murder. "Admiral, we have reports from across the system," Amy announced. "Zephyrian fleet elements are moving to defensive positions." Jake studied the tactical display. The enemy had pulled ships from across their empire to defend their homeworld. It was an impressive force, over 800 vessels arranged in layered defensive formations. But Jake had learned something important during the past year of warfare. The Zephyrians fought like they expected their enemies to follow rules. They arranged their ships in neat formations and waited for attacks to come from predictable directions. Humans had never learned those rules. "All ships, begin the assault," Jake commanded. "Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every species they've ever betrayed." The battle for Zephyr Prime began with coordinated strikes from 12 different directions. Human ships appeared from behind moons, asteroids, and gas clouds. The Zephyrians had expected a traditional frontal assault. Instead, they faced attacks from everywhere at once. Ben Taylor led the main assault force straight toward the planet. His massive battleships drew the attention of the Zephyrian defenders, while smaller human vessels struck from the flanks. Lisa Carter brought her ships in fast and low, using the planet's atmosphere to mask their approach. The orbital defense platforms had been designed to stop attacks from space, not from within the planet's gravity well. "Enemy formations are breaking apart," Amy reported with excitement. They can't coordinate their defense when we're attacking from so many directions. Jake watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. Each Zephyrian ship that exploded was payment for the humans who had died during the betrayal. Each defensive position that fell was justice for the species they had enslaved. The siege of Zephyr Prime lasted 3 months. The Zephyrians threw everything they had at the human fleet. They called in ships from distant colonies. They activated ancient defense systems that had protected their homeworld for centuries. They even tried to negotiate alliances with other alien empires, but it was too late. Humanity had learned to fight like the Zephyrians themselves, without mercy and without honor. Every trick the aliens tried had been used against humans first. Every desperate strategy had been anticipated. Colonel Maria Santos led the final assault on the planet's surface. Her troops landed in the capital city, where the Zephyrian government had ruled for 1,000 years. The fighting was house to house, building to building. The enemy is not surrendering, Maria reported to Jake. They're fighting to the last soldier. Jake was not surprised. The Zephyrians knew that humanity had not come to conquer. They had come to destroy. After what the aliens had done to Earth and countless other worlds, there could be no peace between the species. The final battle took place in the Great Palace, where Zephyrian leaders had planned their campaigns of betrayal. Maria's soldiers fought through marble halls decorated with trophies from defeated civilizations. When the palace fell, the war was over. Jake stood in the ruins of the Zephyrian capital and thought about what humanity had accomplished. They had not just defeated their enemies. They had completely dismantled an empire that had ruled the galaxy for over a millennium. What are your orders regarding the Zephyrian population? Ben Taylor asked. Jake had been thinking about this question for months. The Zephyrians had shown no mercy to their victims. They had destroyed entire civilizations without hesitation. It would be easy to do the same to them, but that would make humans no better than the aliens they had defeated. Relocate them to a single world, Jake decided. Remove all their weapons and military technology. Dissolve their government permanently. But let them live. Susan Hayes nodded approvingly. It's more mercy than they showed their victims. The aftermath of the war was almost as complex as the fighting itself. Every world the Zephyrians had controlled was offered independence under human protection. Every species they had betrayed was given the chance to reclaim their heritage. Alien civilizations chose to join the new alliance led by humanity. They had seen what humans could accomplish when they put their minds to war. Now they wanted to see what humans could build in peace. Jake received reports from across the former Zephyrian Empire. The transition was not always smooth, but it was happening. Worlds that had lived in fear for centuries were beginning to believe in freedom again. Amy Brooks had been promoted to head of Galactic Communications. Sir, we're receiving messages from dozens of species we've never met before, she reported. Word of our victory is spreading across the galaxy. Jake was not sure if that was good news or bad news. Humanity had proven they could destroy an empire. Now every alien civilization in the galaxy would be watching to see what they did with their victory. What's our next mission? Ben Taylor asked. Jake looked out at the stars from his flagship's bridge. The galaxy was vast, and there were surely other threats waiting in the darkness. Other species that might try to do to humanity what the Zephyrians had attempted. But there was one important difference now. The galaxy had learned a crucial lesson about humans. They had learned that betraying humanity was the last mistake any enemy would ever make. Our next mission is to make sure this never happens again, Jake replied. We're going to build something new out here. An alliance based on mutual respect instead of fear. And if someone tries to betray us again? Ben asked. Jake smiled grimly. Then we'll remind them what happened to the Zephyrians. As the human fleet prepared to leave Zephyr Prime, Jake thought about the journey that had brought them here. The Betrayal had been meant to destroy humanity's spirit and break their will to fight. Instead, it had forged them into something their enemies had never imagined. A species that remembered every slight, learned from every defeat, and never stopped moving forward. The galaxy would remember the name of Earth. It would remember the price of betraying humanity, and it would remember why. In the end, the humans always won.